Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome indeed to this afternoon's iOB business webinar. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from in the world today. It's a pleasure to have everybody here. It is wonderful to see so many familiar faces back on with us, and to all those faces that we haven't seen before, a very warm welcome to your first webinar. Now, today, we're going to be talking about your optimal marketing strategies as a startup. Okay, so this is something that we get asked fairly often, and we're actually, in fact, digital marketing experts, we're marketing experts, we're business experts, so all this kinds of thing we're more than happy to share with you and answer these questions that you have. So each one of the webinars that we do, these iOB business webinars, they're crafted around the questions that we get asked the most. Okay, so how do we launch startup businesses? What things should I look out for? What things should I be most interested in? Okay, so these are the kind of angles that we take to help you go forward in your business journey. Now, if this is your first time joining us on one of these webinars, the way that these webinars run is that we do a brief introduction with myself. My name is Ben. Pleasure to meet you. And then we jump into a webinar. We're going to run through our webinar presentation for around about 15-20 minutes or so today, just depending on how much content we deep dive into. I like to do a couple of deep dives from time to time. And then we're going to dive into a Q&A session at the end of this session there. Okay, so if you do have any questions for us on today's presentation, you can ask about business, you can ask about marketing, you can ask about the presentation itself. Okay, anything you would like to know, please do pop it in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen there. Okay, it should be highlighting in a gray box. Now, just before we get kicked off and giving it a minute or two for everybody else to join us, we will be running through the presentation, and we're going to take 30 seconds to a minute between each topic. Okay, and what we're going to do that for is to allow you some time to take down any notes that you need to take. So if you don't have a notepad and pen, I would suggest grabbing one, your iPad, your laptop, whatever works. And then if you need to ask any questions, you can take this time to do that as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's get ourselves set up for today's presentation. Okay, so once again, today we're going to be discussing your optimal marketing strategies as a startup. Okay, so now if you could just let me know if you can see the screen okay, you should be able to see the presentation up on screen, and very shortly I'm going to go ahead and switch off my video cam. I just need to check if everybody can hear me okay and see me okay. So if you wouldn't mind just taking 1 second, let me know that the audio is coming through clearly, and let me know that you can see the presentation on screen okay. All right, fantastic. So it looks like we're all good to go. So I am going to go ahead now and switch off my video cam, so you should only be able to see the presentation on screen. Okay, so for those of you that are just joining us now, welcome, welcome. You have got here just in time. We're about to kick off for today's presentation. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about your optimal marketing strategies as a startup. Okay, it's a huge question we get asked so often. When I run this startup business, what should I do in the marketing world? How can I broadcast it to the world that I'm here, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to start serving clients? Okay, so we're going to give you some great advice around this, how you can get yourself set up and what you should look out for when you are doing so. Okay, so once again, for those of you just joining us, my name is Ben Porter Smith, and I am a professional business coach. I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business, and we run these webinars bi-weekly for people just like you who really want to get a grip on their business, okay? Or people who are looking to begin in the business world. Now, what I do is I specialize in working with small businesses to help them achieve stability and growth. This is my passion. I'm blessed to get to practice it daily, and I work with many, many small business owners every single day. I've heard every question in every niche. I promise you that. So when you're looking at setting up a digital marketing agency, you are in the right place. Okay, so today's session, 3 things that we're going to discuss. Number 1, we're going to talk about budgeting carefully. Okay, now this is a cardinal rule as a startup owner, period. Okay, it's not just about marketing, although that is what we're going to discuss today. You should always be conscious of your finances and your budgets as you progress through the business world, especially when you are beginning. Okay, number 2, we're going to discuss forecasting to make educated approximations. Now, I know that's quite a mouthful, but it's going to become very, very relevant when we look at your lead generation and your marketing. Okay, don't worry, we're going to clarify it further throughout today's presentation. And finally, we're going to discuss starting small and allowing for what's called a compound effect. Okay, now the compound effect is very powerful in many forms of business. And specifically today, we're going to allocate it to marketing. Okay, so topic number 1, budgeting carefully. All right, so the first point I have to share with you today is that you should be looking to allocate a set amount of funds to your marketing campaigns month on month. Okay, so what we're doing here, I suppose, is specifically answering a question that gets asked so often. And that question is, Ben, how much money should I put into my marketing campaigns? And I would say, okay, well, That money depends on who you are as a business, who you are as an individual, what campaigns you would like to invest in, what kind of what kind of results you expect to yield. Okay, so when we're talking about allocating a set amount of funds to your marketing campaigns, the first thing you need to be aware of is that this has to be a residual effect. Okay, and what I mean by residual is something that repeats on a recurring basis. Essentially, it pops up time and time and time again. Now, with this theory in mind, you must make sure that that residual effect is consistent. Okay, so putting £10 into your campaigns one month, then 300 the next month, and then 50 the month after that is not going to yield well for you. Okay, so that's the first point we have to share today. What you should be doing is allocating a set amount of funds to your marketing campaigns month on month. Okay, so every month that you earn money, you should be taking a set portion of that and putting it towards your marketing campaigns. Now, marketing is what brings money. Okay, this is where businesses get clients. This is where businesses sell products and services. If you're not marketing, it's very difficult for people to know that you exist. All right, so marketing for you should be a priority, as it is for every business. Okay, marketing creates awareness, awareness creates leads, leads create clients. All right, so it's a very, very simple formula. Now, the cardinal rule here is that your marketing budget should be approximately 10% of your monthly turnover. Okay, so I understand that if you're on low turnover at the moment, maybe that'd be difficult, but you should aim eventually, whenever you can, to start putting aside 10% of your revenue or turnover every single month and allocate this towards your marketing campaigns. Okay, it's just a cardinal rule in business. It's a good portion of your business, but it's not so much that you should begin to struggle with it. Okay, so make sure that you're prioritizing marketing, make sure that you're prioritizing advertising, and in doing so, make sure you're putting the 10% of your monthly turnover away if and when you can. Okay, number two, when we're talking about budgeting carefully, do not spend all of your funds on one channel from the offset. Diversify and then refine. Okay, so again, another bit of a mouthful of a sentence. Okay, so I'm going to clarify further what we mean by this. Okay, so let's just say, for example's sake, that 10% of your monthly turnover is £200. Okay, so that would mean that your turnover is £2,000 per calendar month. You're putting aside £200 to spend on marketing, therefore 10%. Okay, so when we're looking at running a startup, we're doing many, many things for the first time. Okay, one of which is going to be setting up your marketing campaigns, advertising, billboards, however you decide to market. Okay, now our advice here is not to put all of your money into one channel hoping that it's going to work. Okay, we would encourage you to diversify and test, trial and error on a few different relevant channels for your business. Okay, so by channel, I mean Google ads, Facebook ads, blog writing, or other forms of organic marketing, email marketing, LinkedIn emailing period, emailing lists, campaigns. Okay, so what we're talking about here is a diversification of different marketing channels. Now, if we speak more specifically to which ones you should use, then we can touch down on your skill set, where you're most comfortable and where you've seen results before. Okay, if you're completely fresh into the business world, i.e. you're complete and total startup and you've never tried any marketing of any kind before, you should figure out which channels you're most familiar with. Okay, you can learn Google ads, you can learn Facebook ads, you can learn how to copywrite for email marketing. Okay, so do your research and figure out which one you think would be most appropriate for you based on your skill set and what you feel will be most relevant to your business. Okay, so generally, if you want to run a paid advertising agency, then you should yourself run paid ads. Okay, it's a cardinal rule of thumb. If you're not practicing what you preach, it's going to be difficult for prospects to believe that you can truly deliver a great service. Okay, so do not spend all of your funds on one channel from the offset. The reason we say this is because if it does not work, you haven't left yourself with any backup options. Okay, when you diversify, you begin to get a test across the board. Is that working? Is this working? Are they working over there? Okay, so essentially, let's say that Google doesn't work, let's say that Facebook does work, and let's say that the email marketing is running it kind of okay. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do in that circumstance is you're going to ditch Google. Google doesn't work, we know that now. So let's focus on Facebook and email marketing. Facebook's the predominant one, email marketing can serve as a backup. Now, you have diversified to this point, you've experienced, you've gained the knowledge that you need to drive forward. So after you've diversified, you can then refine. You can start chopping off things that don't work and you can begin channeling your money to the correct place. Okay, so we're talking specifically in this webinar about your optimal marketing strategy as a startup business. This is one of the best things that you can do. Make sure that you're keeping your options open to begin with until you know what does and doesn't work. Okay, and the final point on topic number one of today, refrain from overspending after small amounts of positive results. Okay, so this is a common theory, and to give you a great example of this, okay, let's say that you put £100 into a Facebook ad, okay? Now, what you may see, just for timing, coincidence, whatever the case may be, you may see an anomaly in your results. So generally speaking, you want to run a campaign for at least 3 months when it comes to paid advertising to get an accurate read of how well the campaign is actually doing. Now, this accounts for anomalies because you can draw averages over elongated periods of time to see how much money you're spending in exchange for how many leads you're getting, essentially. So that would be classed as your cost per lead, cost per acquisition. It gets termed differently in different formats. But the main thing that you need to know is that you should not overspend just because you've had a few good results, okay? Good results are great. Enjoy them, action them, get those leads and sign those clients, okay? But what I don't want you to do is start doubling, tripling, quadrupling your budget just because you've seen a few good results, okay? You need to give it enough time to understand if these results are consistent or if this is an anomaly, okay? An anomaly is a one-off unique situation that you didn't expect to happen or something that doesn't recur on an ongoing basis, okay? So be aware not to boost your spending on ads, especially if the business can't afford it at that point in time, just because you've experienced an anomaly, okay? Be very aware that these can happen and do happen. And in order to make sure it's not an anomaly, you should keep doing what you're doing the same way you're doing it for 3 months to get an accurate read, okay? So that does now bring us to the conclusion of topic number 1. So I'm going to pause very briefly. I'm going to have a drink of water. I'm going to let you ask any questions that you need to ask, and I'm going to give you a chance to take down any notes that you need to take, and I will rejoin you very, very briefly. All right, perfect. Welcome back. And we're now going to dive on to topic number 2. So hopefully you've had a good chance to take down any notes that you needed to take, ask any questions that you needed. I've seen we've just got one comment there, so that's excellent. Thank you very much indeed. I'll get to that at the end. We're going to run a Q&A session at the end of today's presentation, which is when we will jump onto your questions. Okay, so moving now on to topic number 2, forecasting to make educated approximations. Okay, so essentially what we mean here, forecasting, what are we doing? We're looking ahead in time. Okay, now to make educated approximations, okay, now you've probably heard the term before, educated guess. This means I am guessing or I'm making an approximation, but it's coming for a place where I'm well armed, I'm well educated. I know that we can probably expect this result. Nonetheless, I cannot guarantee it. This would then class it as an educated approximation. Okay, so point number 1, each campaign will have its own relative ROI. Okay, so ROI stands for return on investment. Now, what's important to note here is that every single campaign, whether it's Facebook, Google, forms of paid advertising, whether you're running a blog post, whether you're running email marketing campaigns, whatever it is that you're doing, each one of these campaigns will have its own relative ROI. Okay, now relative means it's specific to that campaign. So Facebook, you might see that you're bringing in, let's just say 5 times ROI, okay, which means that you're essentially pulling in 5 times the amount of money that you're spending, okay? Essentially, the term ROI, return on investment, means how much money are you getting back versus how much money you're spending, okay? So if Facebook has a 5x ROI, which means that it's bringing in 5 times the amount of money that you're spending on it, that's exceptional, okay? Whereas email marketing is maybe only bringing in 0.1 ROI, okay, which means it's barely performing, it's bringing in 1/10 of what you're spending on it, all right? So it's important to note before we continue that each campaign will have its own relative ROI, and you should be aware of this. There is no blanket statement, there's no blanket rule for how much each one will bring, but you do need to monitor this, okay? Now, research your industry and preferred methods of advertising. Okay, so we briefly touched on this over on topic number 1, and we're going to continue talking about this now in topic number 2. You should be absolutely aware, okay, as a digital agency owner, you're going to have a varying preference of industry. Some people prefer to work with service-based clients, others prefer to work with product-based clients because they find it easier to sell and market one or the other. Okay, so this is your broad term. Then maybe you want to get more specific. Maybe you want to work with the construction industry, the beauty industry, the e-commerce industry. Okay, they all have different and relative methods of advertising that are most applicable. So if you're a paid advertiser looking to promote e-commerce products for other businesses, then you should look to seek out paid advertising campaigns that would work successfully for you. You can do research, you can take examples of ads from Google that have worked before. You can try all kinds of different things to figure out what's going to work best for you. Okay, but only you can truly know the answer. Now, the reason that we're forecasting to make educated approximations is because if we've done our research in our industry and we've selected our preferred methods of advertising based on what we think we're going to be good at, okay, skill set, based on what we think we're going to enjoy. So are we going to enjoy copywriting lengthy emails, or would we prefer to put together paid advertising, videos, images, all these kinds of different things? Okay, and finally, what's going to be most applicable to our industry? If we want to run paid ads for e-commerce websites, then this is where we should be looking. Okay, we should showcase how good we would be at doing this certain thing. Okay, so we could pretend to sell products via Facebook ads. We could say, if I were you, this is how I would sell you a product. Okay, there's lots and lots of ways that we can draw attention from prospective clients to make sure that they at least have the conversation with us. Okay, but you should research your industry, number one. Okay, so your niche within an industry, and preferred methods of advertising. Okay, so your preferred methods of advertising, as we discussed, will be very applicable to your industry. And with this basis, with this education that you have now given yourself, you can begin to make educated approximations into what your future might look like in the marketing world. Okay, so next piece of advice that we have for you here: utilize reporting metrics and KPIs. So if you're unfamiliar with the term KPI, this stands for key performance indicators. Essentially what they are, they're very, very relevant metrics within your business that allow you to track the health of anything that you're doing, whether it be a sales campaign, marketing campaign, operational aspects. Okay, so utilize reporting metrics and KPIs. Okay, the ability to review past data will help you shape future campaigns. This one I cannot emphasize enough. If you truly want to become great at forecasting what you can expect your business to look like, you should review historical data from historical campaigns. Now, technically speaking, historical data classes is anything from 1 millisecond ago. Okay, it happened in history. When we first started this webinar, that's 15 minutes into history now. Okay, so historical data can be classed as anything that has happened in the past. Now, the reason we need this information is because we need to be aware of what works and what doesn't work. So let's say that you have to press the reset button at any time on your advertising campaigns. Maybe something isn't working, or indeed not working as well as you would have hoped. You can then just click the reset button and go back to the start and figure out, okay, well, this worked and this didn't. All right. So if this is where you're at, then you can review this historical data. Rest assured that you have done things correctly in the past, and all you need to do is go ahead and do that again. Okay, but if you're not utilizing reporting metrics, if you're not keeping track of your key performance indicators, you will struggle to remember and understand what worked for you well in the past. And if you don't know what worked in the past, you can't possibly hope to predict the future. Okay, so past and historical data will help you shape future campaigns. Okay, any questions? I know that was quite a mouthful, so any questions, you're more than welcome to ask, and I would gladly clarify that for you at the end of today's session if you need any further clarification. Okay, now the final piece of advice that we have for you on today's topic number 2 is to set yourself limitations. Okay, so I'm going to give you a limitation example here. Now, it's very important that I highlight, we're not talking about limitations in terms of how much money you can earn, how many services you can sell. Okay, we're looking to set limitations when it comes to paid advertising or indeed marketing in general. Okay, I would like each new lead to cost less than £20. This is a fantastic example. Okay, and this is really, it comes down to a deeper term of what would be called achievables. Okay, now an achievable is something that you have set out for yourself to do, and if you don't hit that, your business is not going to be as healthy as it could be. Okay, now a great example, we're going to run over it again. I would like each new lead to cost less than £20. What you're doing here is you're saying this is the goal, this is the objective. So if we're not achieving this, we need to figure out why and what we can change to make ourselves achieve it. And if we are achieving it, excellent, we know that. So we keep doing what we're doing and we don't allow ourselves to slip behind that. But by giving yourself these limitations, you're assuring in your own right, in your own business, that you're not going to allow yourself to slip behind these achievables, because now you can make sure that you know what works for the business and that you can keep repeating this cycle until you get to your desired outcome. Okay, so that now brings us to a wrap of topic number 2. As always, we're going to pause very briefly. Please take some notes. Please ask any questions that you would like to ask, and we will in fact see you on topic number 3 in a very, very short moment. All right, perfect. So hopefully you've had a good chance to take down any notes and ask any questions that you would like to ask. We're now going to move on to topic number 3, okay? The third and final topic of today's presentation. It's called starting small and allowing for the compound effect, okay? So the compound effect is something really, really exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to sharing this content with you, okay? So This theory that we're about to discuss applies to both organic and paid campaigns, okay? So when we're looking at starting small, we mean this in every possible walk of the word, okay? Make sure that whatever you do, you don't dive in headfirst at the deep end, okay? You need to make sure that we can allow time and allow freedom for trial and error. By diving in headfirst at the deep end, we're then eliminating every possibility that we could have had for testing, experimentation, trial and error. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples now of how this could apply to, first of all, organic campaigns, and second of all, paid campaigns. Okay, so just to run through a definition of what a paid campaign is, this is something where you exchange money in exchange for, hopeful leads, returns on income, investment, and generally speaking, you're going to pay financially for these campaigns. Organic campaigns are what's broadly considered as free marketing. Okay, the only thing you will have to exchange for it is time and knowledge. Okay, so organic examples we're going to cover in just a second, but if you need to look at this in more of a clear view, organic equals free, paid equals financial expenditure. Okay, so one blog per week. Okay, if you've chosen to go down the organic method, the organic route, blog writing could be one of the things that you choose to pursue. Okay, you write a blog, you stick it on your website, you gain traffic, you utilize SEO, all these kinds of different things. Okay, now, if this is one of your advertising campaign ideas, just write one blog per week. Okay, don't dive in and start writing 10 per week because you don't know if it's going to work yet. So make sure that you're conscious of your time, that you're giving enough time and enough effort, but you're not completely spending all of your effort on this because you need to save that effort for a few other things. Example number 2, SEO keyword research. Okay, so SEO stands for search engine optimization. Now, the way that this broadly works is that Google will scan websites for content, pieces of information that they feel might be relevant to the search term that the user put in. So if you imagine when you go onto your search engine, in this case, I'm going to use Google. Okay, so you go in and you have a look at what you want to search for. You type this into the search bar, and then Google will then bring up the most relevant result. So that, in a nutshell, is search engine optimization. Okay, if somebody types in digital agency, you want to be one of the first results that pops up. Now, Google is going to scan the content on your website to figure out if you are the most relevant. Okay, so what you can do here is you can do something called SEO keyword research to find out, well, if I'm a digital agency, what keywords should I be putting on my website? What terms should I be putting on my website? In other words, what kind of content should I be writing for my website to make sure that I am the most relevant search result when somebody's looking for digital agencies on Google? Okay. And finally, okay, we're looking at a newsletter subscription form. All right. So newsletter, email marketing is something that can be considered, again, a free form of advertising. Now, don't get me wrong, there are paid forms of this engine as well. Okay. But for the most part, if you really want to write emails for free and send them out to a few prospective customers, you absolutely can do that. Okay, so a very simple and cheap way of doing this, if not completely free, is by setting up a very simple subscription form, sticking it on your website or another landing page or your social media, all free forms of advertising to some extent. And then you can allow this to work for you as well. Okay, so you can garner interest around this. You can see how it works for you. So those are 3 examples of organic campaigns that should be started one toe in the water at a time. Okay, now let's have a look at some couple of paid examples. Okay, paid social media advertising campaign with a low budget, or paid Google advertising campaign with a low budget. Okay, so what we're talking about here is not diving in at the deep end, not diving in with 2 feet, making sure that you're allowing your time to test. So let's just say that your overall budget, once again, is £200 a month. Put 50 in Facebook, put 50 in Google, and see how you go. Okay, now touching back on our earlier point, we want to run this for enough time, i.e. 3 months, so that we can gain an accurate read on this. So don't dump all your money into one thing. Just start testing, figuring out what works. Okay, the compound effect kicks in when you begin to figure out what works. You can compound on your growth and your success. So when you compound something, you build on it, you build on it, you build on it, you build on it until you have it exactly where you want it. So the compound effect is going to become relevant when your Facebook ads are doing really, really well. So then you incrementally adjust the budget up or down, depending on what you want to spend your money on, and you start to see better results. You start to pay less per lead. You start to get more leads for your money. Okay. Now, final few points here, okay? Both organic and paid campaigns begin to learn about your business and your suitability to certain prospective clients. Both campaigns need time to learn, okay? So we're reiterating now the point that you need to make sure that you're giving the algorithms within these technical solutions enough time to figure out where you want to spend your money, how you want to spend your money, and what results are going to be most beneficial to you, okay? Because paid advertising campaigns can bring you results, they don't want to just do that. They want to bring you the results that are going to be most relevant to you, i.e. your ideal prospective client. Okay, starting off with large budgets or too much content doesn't give the relative algorithms enough time to learn and therefore spend your contribution correctly. What can happen if you overload the system with too much money to begin with, doesn't know where to spend your money, so it just starts dumping it in various places, trying to figure out what you like and don't like. Okay, so you're better starting off with a low budget, allow the campaigns time to figure out what you like, and then once that's done, you can incrementally adjust your budget to make sure that you're not overwhelming the system. Okay, you're just allowing it time to spend your money where you want that money to be spent. Again, a side tip, if you chuck in double, triple, quadruple the budget, Facebook's going to go, whoa, we don't know what to do with all this extra money, so we're going to start trying to learn again. We're going to dump even more money in, and we're going to start bringing the incorrect results because we don't know where this person wants us to spend their money. Okay, so if you do ever adjust your budgets, do it in increments. Okay, so to summarize on today's presentation, number one, monitor your spending carefully. Okay, this is the first thing, budget, budget, budget. This is always applicable to a startup, but especially when you're talking about marketing campaigns. Number two, utilize historical data to drive forward. You cannot possibly hope to predict the future if you do not understand the past. And finally, build on strong foundations. Utilize the compound effect. Okay, you cannot build a house on a weak foundation because it will collapse. Okay, so make sure that you're understanding your advertising campaigns and you're giving them enough time to learn. All right, wonderful. So with all of that said now, we're going to dive on to the Q&A section. Okay, so I'm just pulling up the questions that I have from you now. So I've got 2 in for the day. Thank you very much indeed to those who asked the questions, and please take this time to ask any further questions and write down any notes that you may have on today's presentation, on marketing, on business, on advertising, whatever you like relevant to this topic. Okay, so the first question I have today, how much should I invest in paid advertising to begin with? Okay, cool. So great question. We covered this earlier in the webinar, but for those of you that were joining us partway through, I'm going to run over this again. Okay, so when you're looking at how much you should invest in your paid ads right at the start, if paid ads is something that you're comfortable with and you've decided to go down this route, I would suggest that you put aside a percentage of your overall budget. Okay, so you've got your overall budget. Let's just say that you're choosing to advertise online, okay, or you're looking at various different channels. So the easiest way to put this is your overall marketing budget should be roughly 10% of your monthly income. Okay, now if paid ads is one of the channels that you're looking to utilize here, take a portion of that 10% budget. Okay, so let's just say that your overall money's earned by the business every month is £1,000. 10% of that, which should be your marketing budget, is £100. Okay, just for numbers' sake. And then I would like you to allocate a further portion of that already assigned budget of £100 to paid ads. I don't want you to put all of your money into it because I want you to understand whether it works or not. Okay, so let's just say that anywhere between 25 and 50% of your marketing budget, not your annual or monthly turnover, just your marketing budget, take a percentage of this, 25 to 50, and trial this with your paid ads. Okay, so I can't give you a specific number because I don't know how much you earn as a business. I don't know how much you earn on a monthly basis, but what you should do is use the percentage rules. Okay, they will help you, and percentages are very advantageous here because you're not necessarily putting aside something that you can't afford. Most businesses can afford to part with 10% of their monthly income. Okay, fantastic question. Next question I have is, how do I know what a reasonable ROI would be? Okay, so once again, for those of you who might be unsure about what the term ROI means, it means return on investment and is usually applicable in the paid advertising world. Okay, so my answer to you here, how do I know what a reasonable ROI would be? I would like you to consider how much your niche, essentially how niche your offering is. Okay, so generally, the more niche you are, the more expensive your ROI can be, right? So essentially what that means is if you're broadly just a marketing person, you might get leads at, let's just say, £10. But if you're specifically only a paid advertising person, because that's more specific, it might cost you £50 to get the lead. Now, generally, the other rule of thumb is that when you are becoming more specific, your leads will be generally higher quality because you're filtering out the leads that you don't want. The reason that most of the time leads are cheaper for broad marketing campaigns is because they're not specific to that person, which might ultimately mean that they don't end up actually utilizing those leads anyway. So yes, you're paying less per lead, but you might not actually turn them into clients because they're not relevant to you. So my advice is get as specific as you can when it comes to your niche, because you really let's just say that you are a digital agency running paid advertising. You don't want then a prospect coming to you and saying, hi, I would like some SEO work, please, because it's not something that you can do. Therefore, you've just wasted the money on bringing them into the business in the first place. Okay, so that's my advice. Now, £10 versus £50 is a purely example numbers. It could vary anywhere depending on your niche, depending on how much money you spend, how long you've been doing it for. Okay, but generally speaking, okay, you want to use a rule of thumb that how much is that client going to be worth to you? So let's say that a new client will be worth £100 a month to you. How much would you be willing to pay for that client? And that's the calculation you need to make for yourself. Now, me personally, if I sold something at £100 a month, I'd be happy to pay about £100 to bring that client into the business. So in month one of my income with them, I get that money paid back. And then every consecutive month thereafter, I get paid £100 net profit thereafter. All right, but another fantastic question. I know that was an elongated answer, but hopefully it was useful. So I'm just going to do a quick check to make sure I don't have any more questions from today. Okay, perfect. So it looks like that is all the questions that we've had in. All the questions have been answered. And with that being said, then I very much would like to thank you for taking the time to join us on today's iOB business webinar. And I very much hope to see you again in a couple of weeks' time where we'll be doing another one of these sessions. So take care and bye for now.